Be sure to watch my TED Talk on londonreal.tv. Okay, guys, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this. This is Silicon Reel, the video podcast dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I am Brian Rose. I also host London Reel, which is a similar format, same studio, but we have crazy people on like Max Kaiser and George Galloway, Tim Ferriss, and drug dealers like Howard Marks. So check that out if you're wanting a little switch up from the tech. But this is Silicon Reel. My co-host today is entrepreneur Colin Pyle, who runs language schools, gourmet coffee startups, and he's celebrating the month of November.
Yeah.
You can't tell yet?
No, I can't tell. I'm going to shave this Friday. So I figure I'll shave like once a week. Okay. And so
there's a
I'll look like I shouldn't be around children on Friday, I think.
Oh, because
it'll be a pretty bad one.
Are you saying something about guys with mustaches? With that comment?
Well, not grown in mustaches, maybe.
Okay. So you're gonna do like these digital effects every week, like a boom, boom, like a step function.
And okay. I'll put it on High Life, because we talked about that.
Right. Yeah. He wants your Movember story on High Life. That's a sign of a good businessman.
There we go.
He's pitching you during the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Our guest today is Mr. Federico Pirzio-Biroli.
Yeah, not bad.
You like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Impressive.
I was gonna kind of jazz it up, but I'll leave it at that. You are the founder and director of Playfair Capital,
yes,
which is an early stage investment fund founded in 2011, specializing in web-based technology and digital media startups that are capable of disrupting a market and scaling globally.
Exactly.
Say that 10 times.
Yeah, say that.
You like that, right?
That was good.
Before you started this venture, you spent some years in Africa, right? Working for the UN, Oxfam, PharmaSecure.
Yeah.
That's a pretty unique background, I must say. Well, first of all, welcome to Silicon Reel.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, Colin mentioned this about you. Did you see this guy's background? And we just had someone here this week who came from the city, another exotic environment. But we don't get a lot of people that were kind of in philanthropy or activism first.
Yeah, so it doesn't really have much of a connection, on the surface anyway, what I'm doing now. Or it does. So I did things like refugee repatriation and communications kind of with UNHCR, Oxfam, MSF, and then I tried to get a startup off the ground in sub-Saharan Africa, PharmaSecure, which was doing basically it was drug authentication, right? And now it's been done and it's worked, but this was before kind of the first companies that started doing this.
Do you know Tommy Davies?
I don't know.
Okay, he was like our fifth guest.
Okay,
it was called Startup Nigeria, but he talked about either your company or a company like this.
And so it was basically like a scratch-off single-use code on medicine packaging that you could text to a number, like a national number, and then you get a reply with an authentication message and also where the drug's meant to be.
Right, because you said most drugs are completely bogus down there?
Yeah, totally. And actually, I think it's over $50 billion a year industry globally, the fake pharmaceutical industry, right? Which is I think primarily kind of countries producing these things are kind of India, Turkey, Nigeria, and it really is quite criminal because you're putting a sugar pill or a placebo or something into medication, which is literally being consumed by very poor communities who are buying one pill at a time. And if it's an anti-malarial that doesn't have any anti-malarial kind of agents in it, then it's a kind of indirectly killing people. So we tried to do that and get that off the ground, but the corruption and the kind of well-lined pockets of the kind of national medical stores and national drug authorities in these countries was like beating your head against a brick wall. And
even for your young idealism?
Even for your young idealism.
Changing the world.
Changing the world, absolutely.
So you still find it tough, even though you were using a really good low-tech solution that used their phone network. It's a very mobile country. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. The infrastructure is in place already with mobile networks, well developed and everything like that. But it was really kind of on a government kind of political level that there was always interests of these I suppose producers of fake drugs who are making a lot of money out of this, who are trying to stop this from happening really. But I mean the way that having spent 4 years in NGOs really kind of woke me up to the fact of that entrepreneurship is really how you create something that is sustainable right? That's something where doing things for profit is not. It's not a dirty word, right? And actually, in a developing world, doing things for profit is the only way to create anything sustainable, where you're growing businesses and creating jobs and paying taxes within a country, and it's not a foreign organization doing it. And that's what really kind of caught me on to, made me start thinking about entrepreneurship. And then coming back here, I was just fortunate enough to have some capital in a family business, and I decided to do something proactive with it and sell some shares and try and help companies grow and try to help build companies.
That's a really unique perspective, because they say that that's the fault of a lot of like aid to Africa, is the fact that it's aid, and it just either it goes in the wrong pockets or it develops a mindset of come help me, and
and also, to me, one of the greatest, one of the things that was that I found really tragic, I came back here and I was an aid transparency lobbyist for a year, right, to try and kind of with an idealistic perspective of trying to solve this issue, which again was even more frustrating.
Transparency lobbyist.
Yeah, so publish, lobbying big multilateral, bilateral donors to publish their aid expenditure in a format that was digestible by recipient country governments, so that they could figure out what was coming in, so that they could spend their own budgets most effectively, right, more effectively. But all that aside, the kind of lack of accountability and transparency, one of the worst aspects I found of the kind of the NGO industry really is that countries where it's working, or which are enjoying relatively healthy levels of growth, with a rapidly growing local middle class with disposable income and kind of all the attributes that I associate with a company with a country growing, becomes a breeding ground for every NGO and their mother and their brother to start a pilot project, because it's relatively politically stable, and it's a good place. It's a good testing ground for new NGOs. And so the greatest tragedy in my mind was that the kind of well-educated youth of these countries are going to school and they're getting a master's degree in a local university, and their goal, their ambition, their goal is to go and join an NGO, right? So that's how you've made it. You're in the UN or you're in Oxfam, and that's where you have a career path, with promotion potential and increase of salary and whatever. And that's tragic, because those young minds should be building companies. They should be hiring people and developing the economy locally in that way, instead of basically working for a foreign organization that inherently is meant to be temporary. It's meant to put itself out of business in a way, right? Because you're solving an issue and then you leave. And the fact that the local population is really kind of, their ambition is to go and work for these organizations really means that deep down they're perceived as being permanent, right? And that's really kind of a tragic situation.
And the goal is to work for an NGO, not the government, or is the government?
No, an NGO.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
more stable, better.
Yeah, totally. And the government, the government is a whole different kettle of fish as well.
Okay. And were you located down there at the time?
Yeah, I was in Uganda for a couple of years. I was in Kampala mostly, working a lot in Gulu. And then I worked a bit in Kenya and in Tanzania.
Okay.
Wow. For about a total of 2.5, almost 3 years.
Okay. I mean, the name Playfair is an interesting name, because I all of a sudden I think fair trade, but then again, maybe I know his background.
Yeah, right.
And we've had a variety of what do we call them? We're trying to figure out what we call them today: entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, whether it's a big VC or an accelerator or angel, that kind of thing. But is this fair trade investing in a weird way, or what's going on here?
It's fair trade investing. It's more just a certain. It's synonymous with a certain kind of attitude I'd like to invest under, right? I like of transparency and openness and laying our cards out on the table and playing fair, and not being a ruthless, cutthroat, institutional kind of vibe in terms of our investment, really. Okay.
Is there a need for that? Are there people doing the bad way out there?
I think it's a bit of an experiment to see if it's possible to create an economically sustainable situation whilst being a little bit less driven by kind of by really playing everything by the book and having an investment strategy that's really specific, right? I don't know. It's an experiment. Very long story short. I'm just trying to see if being a nice guy can create an economically sustainable situation as an investor. It's quite simplistic, but in a way, that's it, really.
A lot of people will tell you good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, right? No, but it's true. You would say good luck with that, and I'm kind of surprised more than anybody else myself that things are going pretty well. So
no, actually, I would have said that many years ago, but now I don't think that's true because ever since we've been doing this show and I've been doing London Real, I mean, the more good and positive energy you put out, it seems to attract people of the same ilk.
It seems,
When you're investing at such an early stage, I think it's so dependent on the long game.
Absolutely.
Right? Whereas in iBanking or all sorts of stuff like this, maybe you can make a short win, but here if you screw over a few entrepreneurs, you're done pretty quick.
And that gets around fast, and it's a small community, and very much so.
And this seems like a small community in London. I mean, between Shoreditch and Clerkenwell and a few other places, it seems like what goes around comes around very quickly. So,
absolutely.
One thing we ask everybody that sits in that chair is just basic to lay it down for people that don't know. But we ask when it comes to Playfair, like, what have you done? What are your plans for this company, and what makes you different for the rest? And why do you think, I guess, you'll win in this space, whatever that win means, win for your companies or win for yourself?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I think with Playfair, I'm very much in a situation, I kind of have been since the beginning, where I'm running to catch up instead of executing executing something according like a plan that was formulated beforehand. I didn't really know what I was doing in the beginning. I was fortunate enough to have some capital available to me, but as we said, I didn't come from a traditional background of being an investor. I wasn't an ex-entrepreneur, and I didn't I didn't even work in the city. And I just was very lucky in landing on my feet by essentially being taken under the wing of Passion Capital, which is based at White Bear Yard in Clerkenwell.
VC?
It's a VC, but a very early stage, a seed VC, right? Which is quite very uniquely positioned as a VC. I can't really think of another VC that does such small investments in London, anyway. So I invested in a company called Judo, which turned out to be a really good company to invest in. That was my first investment, and I knew Damien, the founder, at university. That's kind of where we originally met. We reconnected when I came back from Africa, and he said, I've got this business I'm starting. He'd done 1 or 2 businesses before. At the same time, around the same time, I met Stefan Glenzer and Eileen Burbage and Robert DeGuerra at Passion Capital, and they said, look, so they invested in Judo as well.
Judo? What's
Judil.
Judil. Oh, Judil, yeah.
Yeah, Judil.
I've heard of this.
And so they said, look, you seem like a nice guy. Why don't you take a desk as an angel in residence at White Bear Yard? And, I couldn't have really landed on my feet any better because I was basically sitting next to some very credible investors with a lot of experience that I trusted implicitly as well. And that I was able to kind of piggyback on shareholder agreements for my first few investments to really learn the ropes, right? Because it is being thrown in at the deep end, and it's essential to have that mentorship, right? I definitely think that it's not tax breaks and things like that that make good professional investors. It's mentorship from from more experienced investors, just as with entrepreneurs, right? Sure. And so I moved. They said take a desk as an angel in residence and see what happens. I moved in. I said I was going to do maybe 7 or 8 investments.
This is going to be investing in your own capital?
Yes, it's all investing in my own capital. Okay. Created Playfair Capital around the same time.
Okay.
I said I was going to do maybe 7 or 8 investments, and then somehow 2 years passed, one thing led to another, and I ended up on, it was I think 21 or 22 investments in December, this last December. Okay. And all of a sudden I thought, whoa, this is becoming a bit of a beast. This is way too big to manage, and I need to.
What's your average investment?
Average investment size is about £120,000.
Okay.
I've gone as little as 30, as much as 300, but increasingly that's kind of more and more of the sweet spot, the 120, 150k range.
Which is bigger. Than
which is
bigger.
relative to certainly for the UK in terms of seed capital, which is on the upper end of the scale of angel investment.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, now that I had 21, 22 companies, I thought, wait, I have to take a break here, pause and start thinking about developing Playfair Capital internally, because I don't have the capacity, or there's not enough hours in the day to be able to manage all of this.
That's a lot of companies.
It's a lot of companies. It's a lot of companies, right?
I mean, 10 is a lot of
companies.
Right. You know, we had Simon Dixon here from DFJ, and he said each partner looks at 6 or... you know.
Exactly. So you see my point in terms of... And so I hired... I had to really take stock and think, what are the verticals I'd like to add value with, and that I need most help with, and also that could help the portfolio companies as well. And I chose, and basically I hired a financial director who was an accountant. He used to work for Ernst & Young, and I hired a legal director who worked at White & Case as a lawyer. And so those two, I turned Playfair Capital into an LLP, so hired them as partners. And they kind of, you know, surround yourself by people who are very good at doing what you have no idea about, right? And legals and accounting I was outsourcing, and I always found quite an inefficient process, and kind of, you know, because personally, I mean, I always find that kind of accountants and lawyers only work as well as the language that you speak to them in. And if you're not a lawyer or an accountant, like, you can't necessarily get a certain point across in the right language to extract the most value from that relationship. And so hiring those two, you know, all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted in terms of all of our cap tables and systems and everything like that internally. Also, they were able to help all the portfolio companies kind of implement Xero and do all these things, you know, accounting platforms and things like that, which are very, you know, which are so much more useful to do early on rather than retrospectively, like later on when a round of funding comes along. And so, so Group Playfair Capital, so it became 3 people. Then thought, okay, you know, White Bear Yard served me very well, but it's time to kind of, you know, flee the nest, or whatever the expression is.
Spread your wings.
Spread your wings, and exactly. And so started looking at space, the co-working space to rent, and then out of the blue, this building kind of was brought to my attention, which it was sent as a tweet. It was as a tweet to Eileen from Passion.
All good things come from Twitter.
Yeah, on Twitter, right? Literally,
Did they IPO, you know, today, and
what's that?
They IPO today, I think.
Is it today?
I thought it was
today.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so this dropped in my lap, and I, you know, talk about kind of an apple falling far from the tree. I walked all of 200 yards from White Bear Yard, so it couldn't have been much closer. Yeah. Saw this building, and it was for sale, but all of a sudden it kind of changed my thinking, and the area, Clerkenwell is a really good area. Farringdon Station's developing with Crossrail. Yeah. And so I ended up buying the building, and then in March, we spent about 8 weeks redeveloping it, and then opened late May with 170 desks. It's about 8,000 square feet over 4 floors. We have 2 floors of incubation space. 1 floor, it became the home of Techstars, so it's it's the kind of first foreign outpost for Techstars, which was a great anchor to have in the building in terms of having a lot of new kind of US investors and mentors coming through and things like that. And then actually the top floor, so you said Raj was on this show, on the top floor, we've collected together early stage capital that basically I've been syndicating with for the last few years anyway. So we have, you know, 5 or 6 angels and about 4 or 5 VCs. And it's all very kind of, it's an open plan environment. It's all very transparent. We share deal flow. We all have different skills, and we all, you know, one person will know e-commerce, one person will know B2B SaaS, and being able to just tap into all that knowledge kind of informally is really invaluable. The beginning entrepreneurs were kind of shocked because they'd come through the lift to talk to one of us, and they go, "Oh, what are you all doing here? Because I'm talking to you next week, and to you, and to you, and to you, like in the next few weeks. But you're all here. I don't quite know what to do with this." But actually, you know, now it's bringing better entrepreneurs because they can talk to 5 or 6 sources of capital at once. Then we, as the capital, can talk to each other at once. We don't have to have 5 conversations with each of you, you know, traveling to each. Before, I was always going to kind of a respective angels members club to sit down and have a conversation, and then have the same conversation with another angel, and then the same conversation with another angel. And now we're all sitting together.
And that floor is are you the landlord of the building? Or when they walk onto that floor, are they walking onto Playfair? Or are they walking onto honestly, number 1 seed and Playfair?
Yeah, no, it's everything. It's not like Playfair is in the background very much, right? Okay. It's definitely, it's everyone's floor. It's number 1, it's number 1 seeds, it's EC1s, it's Hummingbird, Ballparks, UKTI has some desks there every once in a while. And then we have hot desks available for foreign angels and foreign funds when they come through London to have a desk and have a meeting room so they can kind of have a venue to meet people.
Sounds pretty cool. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I think it sounds fantastic. Yeah, it's cool. I actually haven't been there. We were talking earlier. I spent some time at Innovation Warehouse with my
which is close as well.
Yeah. But no, I love that neighborhood. It's and I think
good food and
it's so much going on. And when the Crossrail finally finishes, if Elon Musk hasn't changed,
hasn't hyperlooped
all of London, by the time it finishes, it's irrelevant. But yeah, it would be really cool.
Yeah, speaking of Elon Musk, and before I want to get a little bit more into Playfair, but you just came back from the tech conference in Ireland where Elon closed it. And I was just wondering what you felt, the vibe of what was going on there. It was a pretty big affair.
It was a huge affair. And it was like, it must have been more than twice the size of last year. It was massive.
So is there a point where it's too big?
I mean, I think...
How big was it, to give people an idea?
Over 10,000 people. And... The point where it becomes too big, it all depends on your level of preparation. The more people are at these conferences, the more you have to, have really locked in your meetings and who you're going to see and what you're going to do. Because if you haven't done that by the time when you show up in these places, and like it's like a deer in headlights, and you don't know where to start. So luckily I'd kind of had a lot of meetings lined up and things, so it wasn't too overwhelming. But it is getting huge for a country like Ireland. It's a massive deal, obviously.
Sure, it's huge for the economy.
Is this a sign of a bubble, or is this a sign of a trend?
That's a very good question. So the bubble question, I think, doesn't actually relate to this, because with conferences, it all goes in waves. I always think conferences kind of have a peak and then kind of wane a little bit. And
specific conferences do.
Yeah, okay. Specific conferences. Okay. And then there's like a flavor of the year or whatever, right? And there's certain years, if you look back over the last few years between Le Web and kind of the London Web Summit, different conferences have kind of peaked and troughed a little bit, right? And right now is definitely the Dublin Web Summit's time. For sure.
Okay. They were saying on Bloomberg, it's the Davos for geeks, right?
Is that what they call it?
That's what they were saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you went to this conference, it was Wednesday and Thursday. Like, what's the general feel you get about it? Is there a certain niche of tech that you see developing faster than you thought it would, or do you notice a certain kind of spirit? Are people getting the seed funding easier? Or is it the Series the A or the B that they're struggling with? Are there a lot of Yanks there?
So I saw quite a few Americans there. In terms of seed funding, if it's a testament to how that sector of the market is healthy, right? I think, and call it for whatever reason, certainly in the UK, whether it's tax breaks or whatever that's been implemented the last few years, the difference between, I haven't been doing this for a very long time, but the difference between 2010 and now is it's very noticeable.
For the ease of getting seed funding.
Ease of getting seed funding, because there's so much more seed funding available. Okay. But I think there's definitely a crunch in the Series A, at that stage, and it's only going to get worse because so many companies are starting up. Entrepreneurship has become kind of a very trendy thing to do, and so many people are leaving.
Another hot topic on this show.
Yeah, but so many people are leaving well-established, stable industries to kind of become startup founders. Now, yes, there's this, investors are complaining and moaning about, there's so much more out there and it's so difficult to find the quality because there's so much more quantity and right. Because everybody is becoming a founder. And I think that's true, but I also think it's quite a pessimistic and B, a very short-termist point of view, because so we have to weather this kind of stage of popularity of startups, right? As investors, it's up to us to be more diligent and to have our filters set really high, right? To actually troll through and find the quality. But I think that if you look at it over a 10, 20-year time frame, this could only fundamentally be a good thing, because entrepreneurship is a very particular way of life. And once you become an entrepreneur, I'd like to see some statistics as to how many failed entrepreneurs go back to the corporate world, right? Because once you're an entrepreneur, it's a bug. It's a certain way of life that gets under your skin, and you're going to do another company. You're going to do another.
Really?
I think so.
Okay.
Definitely, or work for one. I'd say, right?
Or work for one.
Yeah.
It's
so
that environment.
Right.
I would say, it's difficult to go back to kind of a bureaucratic, large-scale macro organization, right? Once you've been in this kind of very reactive way of professional context, right? And so actually these entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur needs to have, well, not every entrepreneur, but a lot of you need to have a failure or two, or it's good to have a failure or two before you really know what you're doing. And I think that's, it is a massively sweeping generalization, right? But that's kind of what the UK is going through now. And in 10 years' time, these guys are going to be on their second or third companies, and there'll be a lot more quality here. So I think it's something that you have to go through.
Sure.
And it's fundamentally healthy, but even though in the short term, it's a little annoying for us because it's more difficult to find those quality companies.
But you must meet with a lot of people, and I'm going to ask you this question: when you sit down with a potential entrepreneur that wants potentially funding from you, can you tell within the first 20 minutes whether you're going to invest in this company?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Absolutely.
And without giving away all of your trade secrets, what are you looking for? I mean, like, I'll be honest, when I meet someone, I'm looking for some basic things. I'm looking for things like eye contact, little things like that.
Yeah, sure.
What are you looking for?
But, look, I mean, all these things are massively important to me. There's so little due diligence we can actually do. You have a perspective of how big the market is that they're trying to get into, and an educated opinion and guess as to how their technology is going to disrupt that. But fundamentally speaking, more importantly, this is someone you're going to have to be with for
7 to 10 years.
7 to 10 years, right? 7 to 10 years, and I would rather invest in an idea I have doubts about, but with the entrepreneur, I have a really good feeling about kind of, just on a personal level, about our ability to work together for the next few years, because companies pivot and they change ideas, right? And they have to. That's almost more important. That capacity and that kind of frame of mind of being able to listen and adapt is more important than somebody who has a really great idea but is so stubbornly kind of is just so stubbornly believes in it that it might come at the expense of really
missing the
listening to the environment and to their customer base and actually not adapting when they need to. So the idea is subject to change, right? The person is not.
And still, you got to give me a few details.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for in that person?
I mean, I'm looking for. It's very hard to describe.
I mean, is it a CV? Can you tell from the CV,
no.
Or do you not look at the CV?
I mean, you look at the CV, of course, but it's not. That's not.
It's just a gut feeling.
It's just a gut feeling. It really is, and I know it sounds incredibly.
But how do you get to that gut feeling? Because you say that there's so much noise out there now. So you're getting emails and pitch decks. Yeah. So there must be a process before you even get to the person.
So it's partly a gut feeling, and partly, there's a personal nature to this of kind of, it's often, some of the founders that I've invested in are people that I didn't even meet to invest in. I was meeting to talk about something else, but then all of a sudden, it speaks to me in a way of I've had this problem, or I see this problem, or I have this burning desire to disrupt this industry, and in a way, it's quite a personal thing of like I'm desperate to shake up the big players in this industry, and I think that you can do it.
Okay.
Really.
And then once you actually get there and sit down with them, the thing is with a lot of entrepreneurs, and let's be honest, a lot of tech guys, they're not always the highest developed personalities, No. They're not always the slickest sales guys.
No, of course, but that doesn't matter. Like,
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter. It's almost better that way, right? Because
it's like this, when the CTO wears a tie, you don't trust him, right?
Right, exactly. And also, look, I mean, I'm not technical, right? But there's a natural fit there between me and them in that situation. Like, and again, this is going to be a massively sweeping generalization, but, Israel has a lot of engineers. We have a lot of biz dev guys. Like the Scandinavian countries have a lot of engineers as well, but they need each other, right? Because the engineers can build amazing products, but if they can't describe them or sell them to anyone, then it's then it'll fall flat on its face before even getting out of the gates.
You said you mean the UK has biz dev?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of biz dev people, and basically it's people who can talk and sell really well,
right,
and you need those two together. And I think it's obvious which side of the fence I'm on, right? I'm not.
Unless you're a chameleon.
Unless I'm a chameleon.
To be that guy. So okay, no, fair enough. I just had to hit you with that question, right away. So this is Silicon Reel, and so we like to get real on this show, and so I wanted to ask you, if I'm one of these young companies and I'm listening to this show, and I've heard a lot of other people on this show, whether it's the VCs or there's so many options now. There's like everyone's got an accelerator. Some accelerators don't want equity, like the Microsoft venture. Right. Some accelerators want equity. Some have huge Spanish telecom companies behind them. I'm not going to mention who that is, of course. So why come to you? Why come to you guys?
Well, why come to us? Because we have a network of angel invested minded capital, right? Whether it's actually angels or small micro VCs that still operate as angels, that in turn have a huge network between them, right? So on the top floor, we have the Techstars network with us, and we have basically a multifunctional building with investment, startups, engineers, biz dev, everything in one place. And I think it's a very healthy environment to develop a company in. And I'd say that's our main kind of differentiating factor.
Okay. Yeah. Are you noticing your access to angels by nature of they're in your office is starting to fill the gap of Series A for the fund, for the companies that you invest in?
Not quite.
Okay.
So there is still very much a gap.
Right.
Right. I'd say together as angels at Warner Yard, we can probably deploy up to £500,000, but that still doesn't come close enough to Series A.
Right.
I mean, it's the difference between the States and here in that respect is huge, for sure.
So that is a big hurdle right now. You said that earlier. So.
Absolutely.
And what are your thoughts on accelerators, incubators?
So I'm a big fan of accelerators, although there's a lot of Me Too going on with new accelerators opening up shop left, right, and center. Right? Again, flavor of the month or flavor of the year. Everybody's,
definitely,
as you said, everybody's trying to pursue different verticals to differentiate and tweaking the model in this way or that. No equity whatever it is, sponsorship for this, sponsorship for that.
And a lot of big corporates just want to be in the space.
And a lot of big corporates. And
maybe it's just advertising.
And the thing is, the big corporates, on the one hand, it's very good that people with the pipelines that they can open up to startups are interested in doing this. I spoke at a Contagious event, strangely enough, kind of maybe 6 months ago, which is all the kind of advertising and branding guys, and WPP has their accelerator and all these kind of in-house, and I just said, guys, like for the love of God, please, it's great that you have an appetite and a budget to allocate to this to accelerators, but please, look to your neighbors in a way, look to the established players, right, to take their best practice, to take, say, like Techstars has a white label product, right? So Nike Plus and Microsoft BizPark, they are white label Techstars accelerators applied to these big corporates, and at least then it'll save you like 2 or 3 years of wasting money going in the wrong direction, right? Noticing this doesn't work, noticing that doesn't work, and there are examples of corporate accelerators that are doing just that for the moment. I'm not going to name any of them, but
do they leave a trail of startup waste in there?
And they're trying to find the model and trying to tweak what's right, and unfortunately at the expense in some cases of some startups that get slightly screwed over in their cap tables and whatever it might be. So please, it's great that these corporates have an appetite to do this, but they should really just open up and basically do some consulting from established accelerators, because then at least they can ensure that they have more of a chance of spending their money efficiently first time out of the gate, right? And that's, I think it would be, because it's a shame to have it all closed off and internal in a black box kind of scenario where they're trying to find their feet, because it's not easy to do this from scratch at all. Right?
Does WPP have an accelerator?
They have some kind of, I mean, I think BBH has an accelerator. I think WPP has an accelerator, but this is all kind of, slightly behind closed doors in-house. You don't really know what's going on, but they do.
Okay. And ultimately, you do compete with a lot of these people, whether you like it or not, because they're options for these other companies, right?
I suppose. But, in the beginning, for me, So I became an investor in Springboard. Do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember Springboard. Springboard was the accelerator that was taken over by Techstars. Okay. And for me joining, kind of becoming an investor in Springboard wasn't actually financially motivated. I didn't expect really to make a return out of it. It was more an investment into a network and kind of, you know, getting to know investors, getting to know startups. Whether we're competing with them, I guess, I don't know. I'm an LP in the Techstars fund, right? So I guess, unfortunately, it's perceived as being partisan by some, even though in my mind it's not at all. It's not really picking a side, but it's just they're in the building, and I think that they're with us. So in a way, I mean, we have a lot of companies heading into Techstars, for sure.
Okay. What really quick definition of Techstars? They started in the States. Yeah. They have a branch over here. What do they do that's slightly different?
So, well, they were one of the first accelerators around, right? Y Combinator and Techstars. Techstars started in, Techstars started in 2008, I think, 2007, 2008, in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, Boulder, right, yeah.
Tiny town, university town, obviously, skiing and university. Not much going on, not much VC capital there.
Quite a counterculture in Boulder.
Quite a counterculture, and then
legalized marijuana.
Yeah, and then a few years later, you know, it's a really hot spot of VC. There's a lot of VC capital there, right? It's a tangible kind of result in attracting money, which is partly why I think the UK government is quite keen on these was quite keen on Techstars coming to the UK, and so they opened in Boulder, and then they opened in Boston, New York, Seattle. They have one in Austin now. Basically everywhere except for San Francisco, or most big cities apart from San Francisco in the States.
And they give cash and take equity?
Yep, they give cash and take equity. And every accelerator does between kind of 6%, 10%. Yeah. Probably they all have a slight tweak on that model.
And when those guys come over from the States, whether it's from Boulder or from the West Coast, and they spend a few days in your office, and they say to you, Feed, you guys are doing everything good over here, but I think you should concentrate more on X. What would that X be? Whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah. Let me think, actually. So I think that a lot of them are frustrated with how complicated it is to close rounds here. In terms of the certainly relative to the States, like the old methodology of documentation signing, you know, electronic signatures, all these kind of things in the States are much more fluid and easy, and you can actually, you know, you can close around remotely. Right, you can have a guy in Singapore who's signing documentation that's legally binding on online platforms in the States, whereas in Europe we have a legal system that's kind of, you know, much more old school and harder to shake up and change, and you know, certainly I know that a lot of these US guys have been quite frustrated with the methodology kind of involved, right?
Just the red tape of
involved with actually closing.
I haven't heard that before.
No, I haven't heard that. I mean,
I was trying to think of something new.
I mean, a lot of people say that but then when people in the States, you know, in Europe, people think X and people in the States think 10X, and they say it's a whole mentality difference. I mean, we've heard that over and over. Is that a cliche, or is that?
No, that's true. It's totally true.
Is that valid?
I think it's valid, certainly, but I mean, I think it's obviously reflected in round sizes and what you call a Series A and what you call a seed, right? I mean, it is 10 times less.
Right. Is it round size, or is it the size of the market compared to the US?
Well, it's also size of the market in terms of a lack of you know, balance on the other end of things, on the IPO side and everything like that, right? So you need to have those wins to actually finish the whole process off and justify the beginning as well. And there's definitely, you know, still relatively quiet on that front.
And that's something that comes up on the show a lot. Is
I'm sure,
do we need that big IPO that then has the PayPal effect 3 years later, and then has the effect 3 years after that of growing these new companies?
You can totally see it, right? Like the ecosystem, it's small enough, and weirdly, like there's so much going on, but yet it's still small enough that if a group of people just wound up with like £1 billion, right? Like say a couple hundred people, even if it was that many people, it would just.
And they would stay as entrepreneurs, as Fede
exactly.
said. You can't go back.
It's Fede.
Fede. My mistake.
No worries.
If they stuck around, it would just ignite the whole place, right?
Do you agree with that? I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, but obviously obviously the crucial part of that statement is that they stick around and reinvest, right?
But I guess to be clear, so you're a relatively young guy.
Yeah.
And you're doing all this great stuff, investing in stuff, buying properties. So was your first investment that big a win, or did you have?
No, my first investment wasn't that big a win at all, and I it's doing very well, but I haven't exited from it. I just basically, when I sold shares in this family business, I allocated a pot of capital and said, this is what I have available to me, and that's what we're working out of.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And if we look over the investments of Playfair for the last 2 years, the 21 or so companies you had as of last December, what are the trends we would see?
Well, so this is, you know what, it's quite funny.
And have those changed?
So literally today, Joe, kind of financial director, was putting spreadsheets together and did a pie chart of the sectors we've invested in, right, since the beginning, and it's almost hilariously balanced. It's literally the pie is by chance. It's not even thirds, but 20ths.
Okay.
Like it's basically almost 20ths. It's probably it's probably 16ths or something. But of everything like fashion and e-commerce and everything is pretty much exactly balanced. Again, through blind luck, not through a concerted effort, but it really kind of brought home that we are really absolutely spread out over all kinds of sectors. We're not specialized in a specific. We're not trying to be the go-to person for this sector.
So now, having that pie chart and looking at it, will you be like, I need to be more in this?
Yeah, a little bit. And for the moment, what we're really interested in looking at more of is more in fintech and more in ed tech. We don't really have anything in ed tech, and I'm interested in some of that. And actually, one of the recent, the things I've really been thinking. One of the things I've been thinking about in the last couple of months is really it's a really interesting time for content producers.
Thank you.
No, no,
that was a requirement.
Yeah,
get him the check.
No, but because there's so many businesses that are appearing, and so many businesses that are becoming well established that are aggregating content, and that's all well and good, but you need content to aggregate, and I think it's just a very good time for those content producers to feed, because those aggregated businesses which are becoming well established need something to stand on, right? They need the content.
It's kind of it's an old argument, they have the content, and then who's going to display the content, and then who has the content.
Exactly. It goes
round and round. So, and then what's the content? Is it Game of Thrones, or is it
Is it
a podcast?
Yeah, is it a podcast? Hey, I wouldn't say it's the other end.
No, just joking.
Yeah, but what do you see, or where do you want to be 5 years from now? Do you want a bigger building where you are, or a bigger chunk of capital? Do you want to stay in the angel game?
Yeah. So what I'd like to do. So firstly, people have been saying a lot of two things. Number one, the building's too small, as in we've been
Is
full.
It really?
Well, I don't think so, but we have been full since the beginning, right?
170 desks.
170 desks, but we've been full since the beginning. Everyone's going, well, you could do more. And the thing is, I'm not in the business of real estate and hiring out desks, so it's not.
You are kind of.
Well, I am kind of, but it's not a business model like the Trampery, or we'll do another one, and then if it works, we'll do another one, or central working or whatever. It's just a one-off in my mind, right? It's a one-off, and it's a kind of. It's tagged on to the side of Playfair Capital. Playfair is there kind of under the surface, but it benefits Playfair in terms of deal flow and kind of added value for portfolio companies and things like that. So building wise, it's going to stay as it is, and I'm not going to do another one. The other thing that people are saying a lot is that we should be raising external capital, that we're now in a position to do so. And I would really I don't want to raise external capital unless we strictly have to, which at the moment we don't. I don't want to invite a situation of justifying everything that we do to external investors without that being strictly necessary. Right, because it actually, in my mind, it kind of takes away some of the fluidity of how quickly we can move on things.
Increases the red tape.
Yeah, increases the red tape.
For the US.
But your companies will need Series A financing.
So they'll need Series A financing, right? But that's that doesn't have to come from us for the moment. For the moment, we have a lot of contacts in the VC industry that are doing Series A, and we need them and they need us in a way. It's kind of a mutually beneficial relationship. But I would like to. Basically grow. I would like to become active in Series A, thinking 5 years down the line, but I would like to do it off of our own back, if that makes any sense. So I'd like to basically not raise external capital, get some exits, grow Playfair Capital's fund, but off of its own back, and then become operational at a later stage, deploying more capital, basically.
Wow, that's good. I mean, that's a great dream. I mean,
sure.
that's what we want. I mean, I guess in a way, that's what we're saying with these big exits. Have your own exits. And fund your
own. Have your own exits, and my intention fully is to pump any penny we make.
You'll be sticking
back
around.
Into it. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be sticking around for sure. Yeah.
I just want to get your thoughts of like globally. I mean, you must travel out to the west coast of the U.S.
Yeah, I do.
You must go to Silicon Valley Alley in New York. And do you see things there that that you think they do better or they do worse? We had Steph the hacker in here, and he says he leaves by example every night.
He leaves
by example. Okay. So every night he leaves at 6:30 p.m. by example, as in he's not going to be the entrepreneur that's like, I stayed up till 2 a.m. last night.
Yeah, right.
And he said, look, I put in my work and then I leave by example. Which is it's very un-American.
Yeah, it's very un-American. It's very true. American. It is quite European. I mean, there are less. I mean, again, that's a massively sweeping statement, but in general, I would say, offices are emptier here at 10 p.m. than they are, from what I've seen in the States.
Yeah, is that good? Is that bad? Do you see some things?
I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. Actually, personally, I think it'd be it is blood, sweat, and tears being a founder of a company, and I do admire the companies that I see. There's some companies in Morning Yard that are like that catch an hour of sleep in the office between 4 and 5 in the morning.
Spoken like a true investor.
But exactly. It's
so
like
you're running a sweatshop.
I have to say, and I mean, some of them, if I was an investor in some of them, which I'm not, but if I was, I would say, that's kind of a positive attribute, right? It really shows.
Because there's two sides. Like you're making decisions with my capital on 1 hour
sleep. 1 hour sleep. Right. Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. So there's definitely two sides. Yeah. No, I was. I was in. I was on Sand Hill Road this summer.
Right.
Because I spent a bit of time on the West Coast, and we do a lot of Burning Man as well. That's kind of that's my other baby. Like if I were to call a start, like that's kind of the camp that we run there is my startup. If I had to say I had a startup.
Okay. What do you run at Burning Man? What's the camp?
It's called Hooligan Alley. So
it's called what? Sorry.
Hooligan Alley.
Hooligan Alley.
Yeah, and this year I brought a plane, so a 727, which we kind of brought from a boneyard in LA and designed basically a crashed landing DJ booth with seats and engine casings strewn around. Anyway,
how long have you been going to Burning Man?
It's fifth year. So 5 years ago with 4 people, and then 19, and then 45, and then 60, and then 120 this year.
Okay. Were you living in the plane, or was it
No,
just
we were living around the plane.
Okay.
No, it was just a DJ booth.
Okay. Cool. And is it getting better and better every year?
Yeah, for me, yes. For me, it's every year that I've been has been the best year. I've been hands down by far. But I guess it's because I like building stuff. It's my kind of visceral release every year, right? I get to go and do some welding and some carpentry and build some stuff and make some stuff with my hands, which is actually really nice.
Yeah.
Right. Considering I just basically talk to people and stand behind a computer screen. It's good to actually make stuff.
People spend all year on there.
Yeah. Well, we spend about 10 months a year planning, and then actually a couple of weeks beforehand in a workshop, we have about 30-40 tons of stuff that we bring into the desert. It's becoming kind of.
And is that a completely there's no cash flow from that back?
No, absolutely.
So it's just for fun. And
yeah. So basically, we have say we had 120 people this year. Everyone paid about $300.
Right.
Give us a budget of about 36 grand.
Okay.
Which the camp cost probably about 50, and then 4 or 5 of us made up kind of the windfall, really.
Right.
So everyone kind of gets stuck in very much, and it's
That's
definitely
awesome.
Participative. Anyway,
so you know the West Coast well.
So I know the West Coast, but I was on Sand Hill Road, and there's this I don't know what it's called. There's a hotel on Sand Hill Road where all the VCs kind of take meetings. I don't know what it is.
Hobnob.
It's exactly. It's quite a funny place where you just walk through this part, and every conversation you're walking by, the overheads you hear are just KPI here and kind of Series A there and whatever, CPA here, exactly. And it was my first time kind of properly in that environment, and I don't know. I wasn't particularly jealous, or it didn't really make me want to be there. it's, you know, it's now kind of established enough that there's a pecking order and a hierarchy and kind of politics involved, and which VCs are, and I don't really want to jump in and play that game if I don't.
This is more the Wild West.
Yeah, okay. It's a little bit more, right? And it's still quite young, and it's still, you know, and that has disadvantages, but it also has advantages for sure in being, you know, there's fewer barriers to entry for me as an angel. And already it's harder today, but as an angel 3 years ago, there were no barriers to entry to become an active angel. On paper, what did I have? I had nothing on paper. I had some capital, fine, but I didn't have entrepreneurial experience. I didn't have, you know, certain things that you would need to have, certainly in the States, to become credible. So in angel, in the States, if I'd shown up with some capital, being like, "Hi guys, I'm interested in doing some investing," being like, "Okay, thank you very much, great. Now there's the line, right, snaking around the corner, right? Everybody else is also interested in doing some investing. Maybe it's generally a less risk-averse mentality, but you know, many more people are angels, and many more people are willing to even, you know, remortgage a house to help out a friend, or like, it's maybe a stereotype of the American dream, but there's a lot more willingness to take these risks, right. And so, you know, it would take 2 or 3 years in the States. It would have taken me 2 or 3 years of schmoozing and rubbing shoulders with the right people before my capital was accepted by someone credible, right? Whereas here, the second, in 2010, the second I made a blip on the radar saying, "Hi, I'm interested in investing and I've got some capital," you know, everyone floods in. Right. And already with EIS and everything, it's becoming more difficult. It's becoming, there's more capital at the early stage, and getting those first few investments under your belt, right, which is how kind of what you have to do to grow as an investor and to become credible, is already that much harder, I think. And that's why I'm always going to leave, you know, 5–10% of my time for helping new angels, right? Because if nobody had done it for me, I wouldn't be in the position I am today. And you know, I'm always, you know, people who are like, okay, I'm interested in this and I'd like to become an active angel, I'm always going to have some time to try and help them, because I think it's fundamentally healthy for the community to create experienced angels who know what they're doing, and that comes, as I said before, through mentorship.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had Bryce Keane here, who runs the Three Beards event here in London, and we talk about like the feeling, because Colin and I go all the time, and the feeling there is going down to the pub in England and you kind of have a conversation, but you talk about this and you talk about that. Yeah. You know, if you went to a Silicon Alley networking event in New York, it would be like, you know, business plan,
of course, of course,
business plan. It's already on your phone. And so like it would be this whole like power thing, and over here it's, you know, it's just, I guess, hard to describe than British, I guess. It's just a little bit more of a relaxed way of doing things, and more of a, I don't know, and there's something quite nice about it, I must say, you know, even living here, than what it must feel like in New York, let alone San Francisco. I have no idea but I can understand the scene you're describing.
Yeah, in a way. So. And I think, I mean, New York New York was quite late to the game, really, within the context of the US. And I think we have more in common with them for sure.
That's what Bloomberg said recently.
That is what Bloomberg said. I saw that he said that recently.
Yeah, he said they're competing more with London than they are with San Francisco. Yeah. So of course he's out of a job now, but that's another story. So you know, we always finish,
you win some, you lose some.
You see the mayor of Toronto recently?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's your boy. Yeah, I thought of you.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm proud to be a
Canadian. You know, we always kind of round the show out by asking an advice question. So we're going to hit you with the same question. Right. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old you and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him?
If I could make a phone call to 20-year-old me.
How old are you now?
I'm 29.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Don't go to Africa, or go to Africa sooner. I don't know. What would you say? What would you tell him?
I would say don't be paranoid about what you're doing with your life, because things will fall into place, despite not having any stability for a while. And actually, it's really healthy to have that instability, right? The kind of, you know, for years I spent kind of darting around from this job to that, and kind of never feeling fully into it and going, what am I doing? I think it's a sentiment that a lot of young people have, of something not quite sticking, or not feeling quite satisfied, or that, you know, perhaps losing faith after a few years of going like, what's really like going to motivate me?
Wasting my
like,
life.
Why am I? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why am I? And then, you know, all of a sudden, one day into the next, some catalyst will appear, you know, and then all of a sudden it won't be work, it'll be it'll be your passion, and that is not time wasted. That's actually time very healthily spent when you're young, I think.
Good advice.
That's
That's good advice. On that same note, what's the best advice you've ever received?
What's the best advice I've ever received? I'd say basically, someone told me once that really dealing with your enemies only really creates new ones, right? So actually confronting your enemies in a confrontational way is only going to multiply them. And so actually, I suppose, I don't know, pacifism or my father's a diplomat, and I have come to the conclusion, whether I like it or not, that that's very much kind of, I'm my father's son in that way. And I think non-confrontation and diplomacy is definitely one of the kind of fundamental aspects of how I operate.
And Nelson Mandela said, you should try you should try to defeat your enemies and not dishonor them,
Right.
So you can compete with them, but you don't have to
dishonor them.
Now, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, I was just going to Burning Man.
Just the last part of that question is to the 20-year-old that's listening to this podcast, watching us on YouTube, who is enamored by this tech industry. They hear the headlines and and not even the people that want to be the rock stars. But what advice do you give to them if they want to do this someday or grow up and be like you someday?
Basically. And again, I say that to people in our Burning Man camp as well. It's a duocracy, right? You can talk all you want about what you want to do. You can have ambitious plans, but people will follow you if you do it, right? And this is very much an industry in my mind that kind of operates as a duocracy. You just, if you're just talking about something and trying to get something together, doing it will go a much further, right? And actually get people behind you and give you support and everything like that. So yeah, talking and doing.
That's a duocracy.
A duocracy.
I didn't know what he meant at first. I thought it was like a duo.
A duocracy.
What are the two things? Okay. So a duocracy. Okay. And then, it's one last bit of that question that Colin thought up when we had investors on. Like, what advice do you give to other guys who were like you 3 years ago that I want to get into the angel investing?
Find somebody who's willing to bring you into a round. Find somebody who's, very much like we were saying before of a gut feeling about someone that you invest in. There's also a gut feeling about someone you invest with, and find somebody who's willing to who operates by those principles. With Passion Capital, they were like, okay, well, we don't know who you are. We really don't know who you are on paper, but feel like you're an interesting guy. Let's see what happens. Give you a chance type thing. Come in and no harm done if it doesn't work. So basically find somebody's coattails to hang on to. Find somebody just for a small investment or two, and then one thing will lead to another.
What would you say the minimum amount of capital someone would need to have prepared to invest in startups to really go into being an angel investor?
So look, I'd say you need at least 10 investments. Okay. Right? Because otherwise the risks involved is just not sustainable. So firstly, before that, you have to have this money has to be losable, right? It can't be money, it can't be money that your quality of life depends on. Right, because then your emotions are going to be totally skewed in terms of your involvement with these companies.
Trader from the city. Exactly what a city trader.
Fantastic. So it has to be money you can lose. I would say, and also to be able to defend your position later on and not get diluted into oblivion with at least a couple of companies out of the 10 that you're really feeling bullish about. I'd say you could do it with £1 million.
Right. In order to have that extra money.
In order to have that extra money and that safety net, or that capacity to maintain your position and not get diluted into oblivion, once VCs come on board.
I'm surprised to hear you say 10 minimum. You know, I didn't know you would say that number, but I guess
what did you think I'd say?
I don't know. I thought you might say, well, start off with 3 and see how it goes.
No. Like from day one,
just get invested.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Like,
spread your bets. It's your betting. Spread your bets. Yeah. Right. And the risks
are
just
a basket.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to.
Exactly. Don't put all your eggs in
one of them.
Yeah.
My grandma used to say that. Yeah. That's awesome. Colin, did I miss anything? I mean,
I think it's
we got a lot covered here.
Yeah, we got a lot. It's good. Really good. Cool. Some good angles and good advice.
Yeah, it's fantastic. How do people get in touch with you? Do you want people to get in touch with you?
Very happy. I'm just Fede@playfaircapital.com.
Okay, and Twitter as well? Or you
I'm not very active on Twitter, actually. I've got a Twitter account, but I don't really use it.
Okay.
I should, I know, but I don't.
Now, and then this is the other, we have to ask this to another angel or investor guy. Do you answer your emails? Because a lot of our former entrepreneur guests.
Everyone says they answer their emails.
But they don't.
But I hear lots
That's what we hear.
You hear lots of them.
Word is that they don't.
I'm not the best. I'm LinkedIn I'm not very good with. I'm getting better with my emails, but there's a lot coming in, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say there's like between 72 and a 78% chance that I'll answer your email.
That's pretty specific. You have your
analysis. Yeah.
That's beside the pie chart is your responsiveness.
It's like a new startup, but you don't look too desperate. You know, a little delay, 70%.
Yeah. But I think it's tough for entrepreneurs because they often email, like say an angel or an investor, and they don't get back. And are you not getting back because you don't like the business plan, or just because you didn't get the email?
Like no, we get the email just like just drowning in.
So would you want an entrepreneur to send a follow-up email, or just forget it?
Basically,
show up at your door.
Look, honestly, the best chance, like, you know, to ensure starting communicating really is to be introduced. Yeah, it's not rocket science. Yeah. It's not hard, like, to find somebody who knows me, right? If you're in the tech sector and you're doing something and you go to one Silicon Drinkabout or one event, you're going to find somebody who knows me and who can introduce you. Sure. And that's actually entirely the best way. And I'm sorry, like, that it is that way, but there is so much kind of coming in that you can't really. I don't know.
And are you actively looking for new investments, or are you happy with?
We're closing 4 investments in the next few weeks. Okay. So for the moment, I think that's it for us for the rest of this year. But then we're always going to be looking for new investments from January onwards.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay. Fede, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It was really illuminating, really interesting hearing what you had to say. We are at Silicon Reel on Twitter. If you're listening to us on iTunes, come check us out on YouTube channel Silicon Reel. This is episode 20. We've been picked up for our 2nd season by YouTube.
Fantastic.
You happy with that?
Third season.
Third season.
I think so.
Third season.
We're cusping.
Yeah, we're always looking for the new story. We're not just looking for the hugely successful angel investor guys. We're also looking for the guys that are just starting, and we're actually we want a failure as well. We want someone who just closed up shop like in the last month or two, because we want to hear their stories. You know, we want to get the whole ecosystem. So we're really active on Twitter, so send us your suggestions for guests and all that stuff. If you want to get involved in the business side, send us a message as well. We're always looking for people to have new ideas about, you know, where to take this show. So anything else going on?
Help out. Yeah.
Help out Movember for Colin as well.
Yes. Okay. I will have a mustache the next episode.
If you don't, it's going to look weird. It's going to look like we filmed these.
I'll look like exactly.
a long time ago. Exactly. We really do shoot this every week.
Exactly. I changed my watch. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. As we say here at Silicon Reel, it's about the people. Thanks so much for being here. I wish you guys all the best.
Cheers.
Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Need to just go for your gut feeling, and it's exciting, it's scary also. So you just need to sort of load that rucksack and responsibility every day and just get on with it and try to make a difference. So it's very, very different, obviously.
You know, we've had companies like TransferWise in here and other ones that are trying to challenge the banks, and we talk about the innovator's dilemma. And, you know, by being in a banking company,